didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just looked at the fraudulent tax returns with my forged signature, poured a whiskey, and called my lawyer. I slid the last fader into position and checked the Yamaha board one more time. Channel 7 showing green, wireless pack active somewhere in the building. The Pinnacle Industries crowd was settling in below me, 300 suits in a hotel ballroom that smelled like industrial carpet and ambition. I've been running sound for corporate events like this for 8 years now. Clean work, steady money, the kind of legitimate life I'd fought to build after getting out. My booth sat 30 feet above the main floor, a darkened sanctuary where I could work without anyone bothering me. The Sennheiser wireless system hummed quietly in the rack behind me, all 16 channels locked and loaded. Below, some VP in a $1,000 suit tapped his lapel mic twice. I gave him a thumbs up through the booth window. Everything running smooth as silk. My phone buzzed. Julie's text. "Working late again. Tax season hell. Don't wait up." Same message, 3rd time this week. I set the phone face down on the console and focused on the keynote speaker, warming up his PowerPoint about quarterly projections. Julie worked as an office manager at Hartwell & Associates, one of those mid-sized accounting firms that stayed busy year-round but went crazy during tax season. Made sense she'd be pulling long hours. The presentation kicked off without a hitch. Corporate buzzwords echoed through my sound system while I monitored levels on the digital display. Synergistic solutions and paradigm shifts, the same meaningless phrases I'd heard at 100 events just like this one. My calloused fingers worked the controls with the kind of precision that took years to develop. These hands had done a lot of things I wasn't proud of back in the day, but now they earned honest money. I glanced at my phone again. 9:47 p.m. No new messages. Emma was probably asleep by now, homework scattered across her bedroom floor like always. 12 years old and already smarter than both her parents combined. She had Julie's quick mind, but none of her restlessness. Thank God for that. The keynote wrapped up and they called a 15-minute networking break. I leaned back in my chair, watching the crowd mill around the coffee station. Everything felt normal, predictable, safe. The kind of boring stability I'd never thought I'd want, but now couldn't imagine living without. That's when I noticed Channel 7's LED still glowing green. Someone had forgotten to turn off their wireless pack. Happens all the time. Speakers get caught up in the moment, walk off stage with the transmitter still active. Standard rookie mistake. Through my headphones, I could hear fragments of conversation from somewhere else in the building. Laughter, clinking glasses, typical after-hours corporate small talk. I reached for the mute button, then hesitated. The audio quality bothered me. Too clear, too close. This wasn't picking up random chatter from the ballroom. The transmitter had to be down in the main lobby, maybe by the hotel bar. Professional instinct told me to cut it immediately. No point in eavesdropping on strangers. But something about one of the voices made me pause. I adjusted the gain slightly, isolating Channel 7's feed from the main mix. The conversation became clearer through my professional-grade headphones. A woman's laugh, bright and musical, familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. It couldn't be. I fine-tuned the EQ, eliminating background noise with the kind of surgical precision that had taken me years to master. The laugh came through again, unmistakable this time. Julie's laugh. But she was supposed to be at the office, buried in tax documents until midnight. My heart started hammering against my ribs as I leaned closer to the console. This had to be some kind of mistake, a coincidence, maybe someone who sounded like her. But I'd know that laugh anywhere. 15 years of marriage, and I could pick it out of a crowd of thousands. A male voice responded to whatever she'd said, deep, confident, educated, the kind of smooth tone that came with expensive suits and corner offices. He called her sweetheart in a way that made my stomach clench. My hands started trembling as I reached for the channel strip. I should turn this off, cut the feed, and pretend I never heard it. That was the smart play, the safe play. Instead, I boosted the signal another 3 decibels. Julie's voice came through crystal clear now, animated and flirtatious in a way I hadn't heard in months. She was telling him about Emma's school schedule, about our mortgage payment dates, intimate details about our life that she'd only share with someone very close. The male voice chuckled. "Your husband still clueless?" I felt something cold settle in my stomach. My finger hovered over the mute button, but I couldn't make myself press it. 15 years of marriage, 8 years of clean living, and it was all crashing down through a pair of headphones in a darkened sound booth. My old instincts started surfacing, the calculating, methodical part of me that had kept me alive on the streets before I got my life together. The part I'd worked so hard to bury. Julie laughed again. "Buck? He's too busy with his little sound toys to notice anything." The words hit me like a physical blow. I sat there in my booth, 30 feet above a room full of strangers, listening to my wife destroy our marriage one word at a time. The conversation continued, their voices drifting in and out as they moved around whatever space they were in. I caught fragments, something about weekend plans, an inside joke that made Julie giggle like a teenager. The kind of intimate shorthand that develops between people who've been together for months, not weeks. My breathing got shallow. 18 months of marriage counseling. 18 months of me trying to figure out what was wrong, why she seemed so distant, why our conversations felt like we were reading from different scripts. All those nights she worked late at Hartwell and Associates. All those weekend conferences I never questioned. "Marcus always knows exactly what I need." Julie's voice came through clear as a bell. Marcus. The name hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Marcus, the tax attorney she'd mentioned meeting for work consultations about our returns. The guy who was supposedly helping us navigate some complex deduction issues. I'd even thanked him once, told Julie to invite him over for dinner sometime. My hands gripped the edge of the mixing board until my knuckles went white. The metal felt cold under my palms, grounding me to something solid while everything else spun out of control. Julie was still talking, her voice animated in a way I hadn't heard in our house for months. She mentioned restaurants I'd never been to, movies they'd seen together, shared memories that painted a picture of a whole other life I knew nothing about. Below me, the corporate presenter was wrapping up his quarterly projections, completely oblivious to the fact that my world was imploding 30 feet above his head. The audience murmured appreciatively at some chart about market penetration, while I listened to my wife discuss her own kind of penetration with another man. I forced myself to focus on the main event, lowering Julie's channel to background level while keeping the presenter's audio crystal clear. Professional instinct kicked in. The show must go on, no matter what personal hell was unfolding in the booth. Years of training took over, my hands moving across the controls automatically while my brain struggled to process what I was hearing. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent years perfecting sound isolation techniques, learning how to separate individual voices from crowd noise, how to eavesdrop on specific conversations in chaotic environments. Skills I developed for legitimate work, now being used to spy on my own wife. I glanced around the empty booth, grateful for the darkness that hid whatever expression was on my face. The red recording light blinked steadily on my backup system, standard procedure for corporate events, in case they wanted audio files later. Every word Julie and her boyfriend spoke was being captured in pristine digital quality. The presenter finished to polite applause. I should have been focusing on the smooth transition to the networking portion, making sure the background music levels were perfect. Instead, I boosting Channel 7 again, hungry for more punishment. Julie's voice returned. "I can't keep lying to Buck much longer, Marcus. This is killing me." My breath caught. A moment of hope, maybe. Guilt. Maybe she was ending it. Maybe this conversation was her way of breaking it off. But Marcus responded with the practiced reassurance of someone who'd had this conversation before. Just a few more months, sweetheart. Once the tax situation stabilizes, we'll figure out the divorce. Tax situation? My blood turned to ice water in my veins. Julie handled our taxes, had for years. She was good with numbers, worked at an accounting firm. Made it seem natural that she'd take care of that stuff while I focused on my audio work. The conversation started to fade as they moved away from wherever the transmitter was hidden. Their voices became distant, then disappeared entirely, leaving me alone with the sound of my own ragged breathing and the gentle hum of the hotel's air conditioning system. I sat there in the darkness, headphones around my neck, staring at the wireless receiver's green LED. Channel 7 was still active, still picking up ambient sound from wherever they were, but the voices were gone. 18 months. Not a recent mistake, not a moment of weakness or a midlife crisis. 18 months of calculated deception while I went to marriage counseling, while I tried to figure out what was wrong with us, while I blamed myself for not being the husband she needed. My phone buzzed against my leg. A text from Julie. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you." I stared at the message, then at the wireless receiver still glowing green on my console. She was probably typing it while sitting next to him, maybe even showing him the screen, both of them laughing at how easy it was to fool the dumb sound guy. The hotel staff had started clearing tables below, the networking portion winding down. I should have been packing my gear, getting ready for the breakdown. Instead, I sat frozen in my chair, thinking about Emma, about custody arrangements, about my parole conditions that required me to stay squeaky clean. If Julie had been filing fraudulent tax returns in my name, I'd been so careful, so paranoid about staying legitimate, about never giving them a reason to look at me twice. 8 years of clean living, of building something real, something honest. And my own wife might have been turning me into an unwitting accomplice the whole time. My hands started shaking as I reached for the power switches. The conversation had revealed everything I needed to know, and nothing I wanted to hear. They'd been together for months, not a recent fling. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment affair. It was a long-term relationship with exit strategies and financial planning. I began powering down my equipment with mechanical precision, each switch flipped with excessive care, each cable wrapped with the kind of attention to detail that comes from needing something, anything, to focus on besides the fact that your life just fell apart. I sat at my kitchen table the next morning, staring into my coffee like it might have answers. The mug was getting cold in my hands, but I couldn't seem to lift it. Julie bustled around behind me, her heels clicking against the tile floor in that rushed rhythm I'd grown used to over 15 years. "I'll be late tonight, honey. Board meeting runs until 8, she said, leaning down to kiss my forehead. Her perfume hit me, something floral and expensive that I didn't recognize. When had she switched from the vanilla scent she'd worn since college? I nodded without looking up. "Drive safe." She grabbed her keys from the ceramic bowl by the door, the one Emma had made in art class 3 years ago, painted with crooked flowers. The front door clicked shut, and suddenly the house felt hollow, empty in a way that had nothing to do with her physical absence. My fingers drummed against the ceramic mug, matching the rhythm of my racing thoughts. Last night's conversation kept playing in my head like a broken loop. We could go to that place in the Hamptons again. "Marcus, you're terrible." The way she'd laughed, light, carefree, nothing like the tired sighs I'd been getting at home. Something fundamental had shifted in our marriage, and I was just now seeing the cracks. I followed my usual Tuesday routine, checking receipts in the kitchen trash for our monthly budget review. 15 years of marriage had taught me to be methodical about money. Julie handled the day-to-day spending, but I tracked everything for taxes and our savings goals. My technical background made me thorough, systematic. Among the usual grocery slips and gas station receipts, my fingers found something that made my stomach drop. Heavy paper stock, embossed lettering. Meridian Restaurant, $347 for dinner for 2, dated last Thursday. Last Thursday. I remembered that night clearly. Julie had texted me around 7, stuck at office late, grabbing sandwich at desk, don't wait up. The expensive paper felt foreign in my calloused hands. $347. I made that in a full day of mixing sound for corporate events. The receipt listed 2 entrees, wine, dessert, a celebration dinner for 2 people who weren't celebrating with their spouses. My breathing became shallow. I sat down hard on the kitchen chair, the receipt trembling between my fingers. I spread the receipts across my workbench in the garage, organizing them chronologically like audio tracks on my mixing board. When you're troubleshooting a complex sound system, you have to be methodical. Isolate each component, test each connection. The pattern emerged clearly. Meridian Restaurant, the Carlisle Hotel, Vintage Wine Bar. All places Julie claimed she'd never been, scattered across the past month. The dates lined up perfectly with her late work nights. Thursday the 8th, Saturday the 15th, Wednesday the 21st. I pulled out my phone's calculator. Over $2,000 in unexplained expenses. Money that should have gone toward Emma's college fund or fixing the leak in our bathroom ceiling. My hands shook as I photographed each receipt. The camera's autofocus struggled in the dim garage light, but I got clear shots. Evidence. That's what this was now. Evidence of my wife's betrayal, documented and cataloged like exhibits in a case I never wanted to build. The data was undeniable, methodical, damning, but data didn't explain the hollow ache in my chest or the way my wedding ring suddenly felt too tight. I needed to be sure, needed to confirm what my gut already knew. I called Julie's office, forcing my voice to stay steady. The phone rang twice before a cheerful voice answered. "Hartwell and Associates, this is Linda." "Hi, this is Buck Kowalski. Is Julie available?" A pause. Computer keys clicking in the background. "I'm sorry, but Julie left early today for a client lunch. Should I take a message?" I checked my watch. 2:30 p.m. An hour ago, Julie had texted me. Swamped with quarterly reports, working through lunch. Love you. Another lie. Another crack in the foundation we'd built together. No message, I said, hanging up. The silence in my garage workshop felt suffocating. 20 years of audio equipment surrounded me. Mixing boards, speakers, cables coiled with military precision. All of it suddenly seemed pointless. What was the point of creating perfect sound when your whole life was built on lies? I grabbed my keys and headed for the one place that had never lied to me. Murphy's Basement Bar on Bleecker Street looked exactly the same as it had for the past decade. Dim lighting, worn wooden floors, the smell of honest whiskey and old leather. Tommy Murphy looked up from polishing glasses as I slid onto my usual stool at the far end of the bar. "Rough day?" Tommy asked, noting my expression. He'd known me long enough to read the signs. I ordered whiskey, neat. No ice to water down the burn. I stared at my reflection in the bar mirror. The man looking back seemed older than this morning. Worn down by secrets and lies I'd been too trusting to see. "My wife's having an affair," I said quietly. The words tasted bitter, like medicine you know you need but hate swallowing. Tommy poured himself a shot without asking, raising it in silent solidarity. We drank together in the bar's protective dimness, two men who'd seen enough of life to know that sometimes the only response to betrayal was good whiskey and better silence. The amber liquid burned, but it was an honest burn. Clean and simple, unlike everything else in my life right now. Tommy sets down his glass and leans against the bar, studying my face in the dim light. "You sure about this, Buck?" I pull out my phone, scrolling through the photos I'd taken in the garage. The screen's blue glow cuts through the bar's amber atmosphere as I show him the receipts. Meridian Restaurant, $200 wine, hotel charges. She's been lying about where she is, who she's with. Tommy whistles low, squinting at the images. That's expensive taste for an affair. I nod grimly, pocketing the phone. More expensive than we can afford. The weight of financial betrayal adds another layer to the pain gnawing at my chest. It's one thing to lose your wife's heart. It's another to realize she's been bleeding you dry while she does it. Around us, the bar's usual afternoon crowd provides white noise. Conversations about work and weather, clinking glasses, the distant sound of traffic outside filtering through the basement windows. I feel isolated despite the company, like I'm watching life happen from behind soundproof glass. "What are you gonna do?" Tommy asks, refilling my glass without being asked. "I don't know yet. The whiskey burns less this time, or maybe I'm getting numb. I need to know how deep this goes." Tommy nods, understanding. He's seen enough broken men stumble through his doors to know that sometimes you have to dig all the way to the bottom before you can start climbing back up. I finish my drink and head home as evening shadows lengthen across our driveway. Julie's car isn't there yet. Another late meeting according to her latest text. I sit in my truck for a moment, gathering courage for what comes next. The house looks the same as always, but everything feels different now. Contaminated. Inside, I head straight to Julie's home office, a small room she claimed as her workspace for freelance bookkeeping. I'd always respected her privacy, never questioned why she needed a locked desk for what seemed like simple part-time work. Now that respect feels like stupidity. The desk drawers are locked, but my technical background includes knowing my way around simple mechanisms. Years of rigging equipment in tight spaces taught me to work with my hands. The lock gives way with gentle pressure from a small screwdriver I keep in my toolkit. My heart pounds as I open the first drawer. My hands freeze as I stare at the contents. Tax documents, our tax documents, but versions I've never seen before. My name is on forms claiming business deductions for Kowalski Audio Solutions LLC, a company that doesn't exist. The amounts are staggering. $847,000 in claimed business expenses over the past year. Equipment purchases, travel costs, client entertainment, all fabricated. My technical mind immediately grasps the implications. This isn't just an affair, it's tax fraud. On a massive scale, using my name. My criminal record makes me the perfect fall guy. I photograph each fraudulent document with methodical precision, my sound engineering training making me naturally thorough with documentation. Form after form shows my forged signature, claiming business expenses that never happened. The fake consulting company has my name as sole proprietor, making me legally responsible for every fraudulent claim. My hands shake as I realize the scope of Julie's betrayal. She hasn't just broken my heart, she's potentially destroyed my future. One call to the IRS and I'd be facing federal charges. My reformed life, 15 years of staying clean, means nothing now. The sound of Julie's car in the driveway cuts through my panic. I quickly return everything to its original position, my movements swift and silent from years of setting up audio equipment in occupied spaces. I'm back in the kitchen, appearing to read a magazine when she enters. "Sorry I'm so late, honey. Client emergency," she says, dropping her purse by the door. Her voice carries that same cheerful tone she's been using for months, the one I now recognize as performance. I study her face, the same face I've loved for 15 years, searching for signs of the woman who's been systematically destroying my life. She looks tired but satisfied, like someone who's had a productive day. The normalcy of her demeanor chills me more than any dramatic confession would. "How was your day?" I ask, testing my voice. It comes out steady, neutral. "Busy. You know how it is with tax season coming up." She moves around the kitchen with practiced ease, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. "I might have to work late again tomorrow. Big client presentation." Another lie, delivered with the same casual confidence as asking about dinner plans. I watch her hands as she chops vegetables. The same hands that forged my signature on federal documents. The same hands that have been stealing our future while playing house with another man. Julie, I say carefully, I was thinking about our taxes. Maybe we should go over them together this year. She freezes for just a moment, the knife pausing mid-chop. Oh, that's sweet, but you know how boring that stuff is. I've got it handled. The smile she gives me doesn't reach her eyes. Besides, you're always so busy with your sound work. The dismissal stings, but now I understand its purpose. Keep Buck in the dark. Keep Buck focused on his equipment while she dismantles everything we've built. I nod and return to my magazine, but the words blur together. All I can think about are those receipts, those fraudulent tax returns, and the growing certainty that my wife has been claiming every expensive dinner, every hotel room, every gift for her lover as a business expense on tax returns filed in my name without my knowledge. I stared at the tax documents spread across my kitchen table, my coffee growing cold in the mug beside them. The Kowalski Audio Solutions LLC letterhead might as well have been written in neon. A company that never existed, claiming $847,000 in business deductions. My hands shook as I traced the forged signature with my finger, recognizing Julie's careful mimicry of my handwriting from years of watching me sign equipment receipts. The morning light streaming through our kitchen window felt harsh, exposing every fraudulent line item like stage lighting on a bad performance. Consulting fees, $127,000. Equipment purchases, $89,500. Travel expenses, $43,200. All fiction, all built on my name and social security number. The weight of 18 months of systematic deception settled in my chest like lead weights dragging me underwater. I picked up my phone 3 times before finally dialing the IRS hotline. Hung up twice when the automated voice started talking about penalties and criminal prosecution. On the 3rd try, I forced myself to stay on the line, listening to cheerful hold music while my stomach churned acid. IRS Criminal Investigation Division, Agent Sarah Chen speaking. The words came out like gravel. I need to report tax fraud, filed under my name without my knowledge. I'll need your full name and social security number, sir. I gave her the information, then waited through the longest pause of my life. Mr. Kowalski, are you currently on probation or parole? The question hit like a physical blow to my solar plexus. My reformed status, my clean record since getting out of Stateville, all hanging by a thread. One criminal charge would send me back inside, and Julie knew this when she forged my name. She knew exactly what she was doing to me. No, ma'am. Clean record for 12 years. I see a prior conviction here for financial crimes. Wire fraud, 1998 to 2003. Yes, ma'am. I served my time. Been clean since. Agent Chen's voice turned clinical, professional. Mr. Kowalski, given your history, we'll need to conduct a thorough investigation to determine your level of involvement. You'll need to come in for questioning within 72 hours. The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, watching dust motes dance in the morning sun while my world collapsed around me. Julie had built me a perfect trap. If I reported the fraud, my criminal history made me the prime suspect. If I didn't report it, I was complicit when they caught up with the fake returns. I drove to Murphy's basement bar in a daze, parking crooked across 2 spaces on Bleecker Street. The familiar neon sign flickered weakly in the afternoon sun, casting purple shadows on the cracked sidewalk. Inside, the bar smelled like stale beer and decades of cigarette smoke that no amount of cleaning could eliminate. Tommy Murphy took one look at my face and poured a double Jameson without being asked. The amber liquid burned going down, but not as much as the realization that Julie had been planning this destruction for over a year. Every loving gesture, every shared meal, every time she whispered my name in the dark, all performed while she systematically destroyed my future. "You look like death warmed over, Buck." Tommy's weathered face creased with concern as he polished a glass with mechanical precision. "What's eating you?" The words came out in a rush. The affair, the tax fraud, the trap closing around me like a steel vice. Tommy listened without judgment, occasionally nodding his gray head. His silence felt like absolution, or maybe just the calm before another storm. "She's been coming in here," he said quietly, setting down the glass. "With that lawyer fellow, talking about property division, asset protection strategies." My blood turned to ice water in my veins. "What lawyer?" "Fancy suit, soft hands, Marcus something. They've been meeting here Tuesday afternoons for months, thinking I don't listen." Tommy's eyes met mine across the bar. "Been planning your future without you, Buck." The revelation hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Julie and Marcus had been meeting at Murphy's, my sanctuary, the one place I felt safe, planning their future while destroying mine. My vision blurred as 18 months of calculated deception crystallized into perfect, horrible focus. Every "I love you" had been a lie. Every shared laugh, every intimate moment was performed while she filed fraudulent returns in my name. The bar spun around me as I realized the depth of her manipulation. She didn't just cheat on me. She weaponized my criminal past against me, turning my reformed life into a weapon pointed at my own head. My hands clenched into fists on the scarred wooden bar as rage and helplessness warred in my chest. This wasn't betrayal. This was systematic destruction, planned and executed with the precision of a military operation. Julie had studied me, learned my weaknesses, and struck where it would hurt most. Tommy leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Buck, you need to understand something. That lawyer, Marcus, he's been asking questions about your equipment, your business setup. They're not just planning to leave you, they're planning to destroy you." The coffee cup felt like ice against my palms, despite the steam rising from the black surface. "What kind of questions?" "Technical stuff. How much your gear is worth, whether you keep business records, if you file quarterly taxes." Tommy's weathered fingers drummed against the bar. Questions a man asks when he's building a case. My stomach dropped through the floor. They weren't just stealing from me. They were studying me, learning how to frame me. Every casual conversation about my work, every time Julie asked about my equipment purchases, suddenly took on a sinister meaning. She'd been conducting reconnaissance on her own husband. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands, scrolling to the audio files from the Pinnacle Industries event. 47 minutes of recorded conversation. My finger hovered over the play button as Tommy moved closer, his bartender's instincts recognizing the moment when a man either breaks or fights back. "You got something on them?" His voice carried the weight of someone who'd seen plenty of wars fought in his establishment. "Maybe." I hit play, adjusting the volume so only we could hear. Julie's voice filled the space between us, sweet and familiar but discussing things that made my blood freeze. "Buck's too trusting. He never checks the returns I file, just signs where I tell him to sign." Marcus's laughter cut through the recording like a blade. The reformed convict taking the fall. Beautiful irony. Tommy's face hardened as we listened to them dissect my life with surgical precision. They discussed timing, when to trigger the IRS investigation, how to position me as the mastermind while she played the victimized wife. Every word was another nail in the coffin they'd built for me while I slept beside her. "Jesus Christ, Buck." Tommy's voice was barely audible. "They've been planning this for months." The recording continued, their voices casual and contemptuous. Julie explaining how she'd been practicing my signature, using handwriting analysis software she'd bought under the pretense of helping with my paperwork. Marcus coaching her on asset protection strategies, ways to hide money before the divorce proceedings began. The beautiful thing, Marcus's voice crackled through my phone speaker. Is that his probation status makes him the perfect patsy? Who's going to believe a convicted felon over a grieving wife? I stopped the playback, my hands trembling with rage. The bar around us felt smaller, the walls closing in as the full scope of their betrayal became clear. This wasn't just an affair. It was a coordinated attack designed to destroy everything I'd built since leaving prison. Back home, I sat in my studio surrounded by the tools of my legitimate trade. The Yamaha mixing board glowed softly in the dim light, its familiar controls offering the only comfort I could find. These machines had been my salvation, my path back to respectability. Now they might be my only weapons. I copied the audio files to multiple drives, my technical skills serving me in ways they never had during my criminal past. Each backup felt like insurance against the storm coming my way. The irony wasn't lost on me. My honest work had exposed their dishonest scheme. The photocopied tax documents spread across my desk told a story of meticulous fraud. Fake receipts for equipment I'd never purchased, fabricated consulting contracts for services I'd never performed, invented business trips to cities I'd never visited. The paper trail was extensive and damning, but it was the bank statements that made my vision blur with rage. First National Bank showed deposits totaling $127,000 in fraudulent refunds, money that never touched my hands but bore my forged signature. Julie had been systematically stealing from the government in my name while I worked legitimate gigs, building a case that would send me back to prison. My phone buzzed. Detective Ray Castellanos returning my call. Mr. Kowalski, I've reviewed the materials you sent. This is serious. His voice carried the weight of someone who'd seen financial crimes destroy families. The good news is, you have substantial evidence of victimization. The bad news is your name is on everything. What does that mean for me? Cooperation helps. Evidence of being defrauded helps more. But your probation officer will need notification, and the IRS doesn't always distinguish between victim and accomplice initially. My reformed life balanced on a knife's edge, while Julie and Marcus continued their charade somewhere in the city. How long do I have? The investigation is already open. I'd say days, not weeks before this gets official. Can you come in tomorrow morning? I agreed and hung up, staring at the evidence scattered across my desk. Time was running out to control the narrative of my own destruction. That's when I found them. Divorce papers hidden in Julie's jewelry box, not yet filed but prepared by Marcus's law firm. My hands shook as I read through the petition that painted me as an abusive ex-convict who'd coerced his innocent wife into financial fraud. Every shared memory was reframed as evidence of controlling behavior. Every argument became domestic intimidation. The asset division gave her everything: the house, our savings, even my audio equipment. But the custody section destroyed me completely. Supervised visitation only due to father's criminal history and recent financial crimes involving identity theft. She wasn't just stealing my money. She was taking Emma, too. The papers were dated 3 weeks ago, before I knew anything was wrong, before the hot mic incident, before I discovered a single receipt. While I'd been mixing sound and building our future, she'd been systematically planning my destruction with the precision of a military operation. I walked into the IRS Criminal Investigation Division at 9 sharp, my steel-toed boots echoing off polished floors that probably cost more than my truck. Agent Sarah Chen's office smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Gray walls, fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry wasps, and a desk so clean it looked like nobody actually worked there. The evidence bag sat between us like a time bomb. My Yamaha mixing board, sealed in plastic with chain of custody tags. 47 minutes of crystal-clear audio that would destroy everything Julie thought she'd built. Mr. Kowalski, Chen said, her pen hovering over a legal pad. Walk me through the technical specifications. I slid the flash drive across her desk. My hands didn't shake. 15 years of handling delicate equipment had trained that out of me. Shure SM58 microphone, Sennheiser wireless system. Channel 7 wasn't properly cut during the corporate event. Every conversation about the fake deductions, the shell company, everything. Chen plugged in the drive, her face stone serious as my wife's voice filled the sterile room. Marcus says we can claim another $50,000 if we backdate the consulting contract. You understand you'll need to testify? Chen asked. I nodded, my calloused hands steady on my knees. I understand. Just promise me she won't walk away from this. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Chen reviewed the documentation, her pen scratching notes that would unravel Julie's carefully constructed lies. Each mark on that paper was another nail in the coffin of my marriage. 20 minutes later, Detective Ray Castellanos joined us in conference room B. He spread the photocopied tax returns across the table like a dealer showing a losing hand. The papers rustled under the air conditioning vent. Kowalski Audio Solutions LLC, Castellanos said, tapping a document with his index finger. Fake company, real bank account, $847,000 in fraudulent deductions over 14 months. I stared at my forged signature. Julie had practiced it well. The loops and angles looked almost right, but I knew my own handwriting better than anyone. She's been planning this for over a year. The question is, Castellanos continued, leaning back in his chair, are you willing to wear a wire for the final meeting? My jaw tightened. The weight of my reformed life hung in the balance. One wrong move and I'd be back in orange jumpsuit territory. But my voice came out steady. Set it up. The Meridian restaurant gleamed with crystal and mahogany when I arrived at 7:30. White tablecloths, soft lighting, the kind of place Julie always said we should go to more often. Now I knew why she'd suggested it. Neutral ground, public setting, witnesses everywhere. I adjusted the tiny microphone taped beneath my shirt collar. The wire ran down my chest, connected to the Sennheiser wireless transmitter hidden in my jacket pocket. 15 years of audio work had taught me how to hide equipment in plain sight. Julie arrived 10 minutes late, her black dress catching the restaurant's warm lighting. The same dress she'd worn to our anniversary 3 years ago, when I still believed in us. You look good, she said, kissing my cheek with practiced affection. Her perfume, something expensive I didn't recognize, filled my nostrils. I pulled out her chair, my movements mechanical. We need to talk about our future, Julie, about what comes next. She settled into the expensive leather seat, completely unaware that federal agents were listening to every word through the transmitter in my pocket. Her smile looked genuine, but I'd learned not to trust anything about her anymore. I ordered us a bottle of the Cabernet, she said, gesturing to the wine already breathing on the table. The one from our honeymoon. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was trying to resurrect memories while I prepared to bury our entire life together. I waited until she'd taken her first sip before sliding the manila envelope across the white tablecloth. The paper made a soft whisper against the fabric. Divorce papers, I said quietly, and copies of every fraudulent tax return you filed in my name. Julie's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. The color drained from her face like someone had pulled a plug. Her manicured fingers trembled as she set down the glass, red wine sloshing against crystal. Buck, I can explain. No need. I kept my voice level, professional. Agent Chen already has the originals. She opened the envelope with shaking hands. Each document hit her like a physical blow. The tax returns, the bank statements, the wire transfer records. The ambient restaurant chatter continued around us, but our table had become an island of devastating silence. The offshore accounts too, I added, watching her face crumble. Marcus's consulting fees, the shell company setup, everything. Julie's voice cracked as she tried to salvage the unsalvageable. The money was for us, for Emma's future. My laugh came out bitter. For Marcus, you mean? I know about the Cayman Islands account, Julie. The IRS knows about the Cayman Islands account. Her eyes darted around the restaurant like a trapped animal looking for an exit that didn't exist. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone, played a snippet of her voice from the corporate event. Marcus says we can claim another $50,000 if we backdate the consulting contract to March. The color drained completely from her face as she realized the scope of my evidence. Her carefully constructed world was collapsing, one audio file at a time. The waiter approached with dessert menus, his practiced smile faltering as he noticed the tension radiating from our table. I waved him away without looking up, my eyes fixed on Julie as she stared at the divorce papers like they might burst into flames. Marcus is already in federal custody, I said, watching her composure finally shatter completely. Tax evasion, conspiracy, wire fraud. They picked him up this morning. Her hands flew to her purse, fingers scrambling through designer clutter. I need to call my lawyer. You need a criminal defense attorney, not a divorce lawyer. The words carried the weight of my own criminal past, understanding the machinery of justice she was about to face. Trust me on this one, Julie. I know how this works. She looked up at me with wild eyes, mascara starting to smudge at the corners. You planned this. You set us up. You set yourselves up. I kept my voice steady, professional. I just documented it. The restaurant's elegant atmosphere continued around us. Couples sharing desserts, business deals being struck over brandy, anniversary celebrations at corner tables. But our marriage was dying in real time at table 12, and the other diners had no idea they were witnessing an execution. Julie's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her face went even whiter. It's Emma. She's asking why FBI agents are at the house. My stomach clenched. I'd hoped to shield Emma from the immediate chaos, but federal seizures don't wait for convenient timing. Answer it. Tell her you'll explain later. What am I supposed to say? Her voice cracked. That Mommy's going to prison? That Mommy made some bad choices. I pulled out my wallet, counting out cash for the check, and that Daddy's going to make sure she's okay. Julie typed a response with shaking fingers, then set the phone down like it had burned her. 15 years, Buck. Doesn't that mean anything? I stood up, shrugging on my jacket. The familiar weight of the leather felt grounding, real. It meant everything. That's why this hurts so much. She remained seated, staring at the divorce papers spread across the white tablecloth like a crime scene. The wine we'd shared, the same vintage from our honeymoon, sat abandoned, turning bitter in expensive crystal. The house is yours until the federal seizure, I said, my voice carrying no malice, just exhaustion. My pension is protected, my tools are in my truck. That's all I need. I left her sitting there, surrounded by the wreckage of her choices. Outside the Meridian, Detective Castellanos waited in an unmarked Crown Vic, engine running. I walked over and tapped on the passenger window. It rolled down with a mechanical whir. How'd it go? He asked, stubbing out a cigarette. I pulled the wire transmitter from my jacket pocket and handed it over. She admitted to the offshore accounts on tape, confirmed Marcus was the mastermind behind the consulting company's setup. Castellanos nodded grimly, pocketing the device. We'll have search warrants by morning. The federal prosecutor's already drafting indictments. Through the restaurant's warm windows, I could see Julie still sitting at our table, her silhouette small and defeated against the elegant backdrop. A waiter hovered nearby, probably wondering if she planned to order something or just occupy the table all night. What happens to Emma? I asked. Custody hearing will determine that. But you're clean, Kowalski. Your cooperation saved your ass. He started to roll up the window, then paused. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. The Crown Vic pulled away, leaving me alone on the sidewalk. October wind cut through my jacket, carrying the smell of rain and exhaust from the city street. I looked back at the restaurant one more time, then started walking. My phone buzzed. Text from Emma. "Dad, Mom's crying. What happened?" "The FBI people won't tell me anything." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. How do you explain to a 12-year-old that her mother chose greed over family? That the woman who tucked her in every night had been stealing from the government and planning to frame her own husband? I typed back. "Coming home soon. We'll talk then. Everything's going to be okay." It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. Emma would be okay. I'd make sure of that, even if I had to rebuild our lives from scratch. The neon sign of Murphy's Basement Bar glowed ahead like a lighthouse, promising the sanctuary of honest whiskey and Tommy's understanding silence. My footsteps echoed off wet pavement as I walked toward the only place that had never asked me to be anything other than what I was. Tommy Murphy looked up from polishing glasses as I pushed through the bar's heavy door. The familiar smell of beer and old wood wrapped around me like a blanket. "Rough night?" he asked, though my face probably told the whole story. I slid onto my usual stool, the worn leather familiar beneath me. "It's over. All of it." Tommy poured 2 fingers of bourbon without being asked, the amber liquid catching the bar's dim light. "The marriage or the trouble?" "Both." I raised the glass, studying the whiskey like it might hold answers. "She's going to federal prison, Tommy, and I'm free." The words tasted strange, victory mixed with the ashes of a life I thought I knew. Around us, the bar's comfortable darkness held a handful of regulars nursing their own troubles. A Cubs game played silently on the TV above the register, the season long over but the ritual continuing. You know what the worst part is? Part of me still loves her. After everything she did, everything she stole, I still remember the woman I married. Tommy nodded, wiping down the bar with practiced efficiency. That's what makes you human, Buck. The day you stop feeling that pain is the day you become like them. I took a sip of bourbon, letting it burn away the taste of expensive wine and broken promises. Tomorrow I'd have to explain everything to Emma, help her understand why her world was falling apart. Tomorrow I'd start over again, just like I had after prison. But tonight, I was just a guy in a bar, drinking whiskey and mourning the death of 15 years. It wasn't much, but it was honest. And after months of lies, honest felt like everything.